What is up? It's Coach Nick here, and today I want to be covering how you can structure an upper body training session to develop strength, power, and explosiveness. And I'm even going to provide some extra methods and advanced methods for you in breaking down the exercises, how to do them with the right intention. And then I'm also going to give you a couple little things that you can do if you want to focus a little more on hypertrophy, but still get some of those athletic benefits. First, I just want to give a quick shout out to D1 Jax and allowing me to actually come in here and film content so I can provide more valuable information, training strategies to all of our athletes that are subscribing and our viewers. So thank you to them, give them a shout out. I think it's important for all of us to know that there are really 6 to 8 total different types of categories that we're working through and we should be thinking about as we're building out an upper body training session. So this is how I think about it and how I break it down. You can also think about some specific like targeting muscle groups, but the primary movement patterns that I'm looking at for our strength and power movements are going to be these, okay? So we have a horizontal push and pull. So you can think of something like your standard dumbbell bench press or barbell bench press, and then the pull would be like a row or a dumbbell row, right? So horizontal push and pull. We also have the unilateral variation, okay? So whether that's single arm, push or pull. Next is gonna be your vertical push and pull, right? So something like a push press or overhead press, and then like a pull up or a lat pull down. That's gonna be what I'm thinking about. And then we have our unilateral variations, okay, for that. So a single arm like kettlebell push or overhead press, okay? So those are what I'm thinking about. And then we have our last piece, which for me in sports, there's always some sort of rotation, and a lot of the power that you're gonna be able to express through your upper body in most cases is going to have some sort of rotational piece to it where you're engaging the core and you're sequencing the muscles to come up and out through the arm, or vice versa. You're driving through the hips and the core, and then you're rowing for that piece. So I like to add a rotational piece in there as well with a rotational push and pull that is going to have an emphasis on either more of a horizontal plane, so that would be something like your shot put throws, okay, or a vertical component where maybe now we are doing like a single arm kettlebell rotational press coming up and through. So these I would consider more of the like athletic based movements where you're going to have a little bit more coordination. You might not have as much load, but you're really focusing on more on how your body's sequencing and ability to be able to express force. So when we're building out our workout for the strength, power, speed, explosiveness, all of that, I'm selecting a subset of exercises that are gonna fall in line with one of these for that particular workout. So you can even have horizontal push, pull, power, and strength days and vertical push, pull, strength, and power days, and then layer in some of the rotational pieces earlier on. So that's how I think about it. And now I'm gonna break down the entire workout structure for you and then give the workout. Now for the warm-up, this can be anything that really you've done in the past that get your shoulders warm, get your back warm, opens up your chest, and get you ready and feeling good. So this is just a very simple one. I like my warm-ups to be a little bit quicker and very effective, get the blood flowing in and out so you're not wasting a ton of time on it. So a very simple one that you can do is a TRX Lou raise, which I will show in a second. Go immediately into a TRX push-up. TRX Y, T's, and W's. I think this is one of the most underrated types of shoulder strengthening, prehab, rehab type exercises, and if you do it consistently, a YTW variation is pretty much in every single one of my workouts and upper body workouts, simply for the fact that it does such a good job at getting your shoulders warm and helping stabilize them and providing the strength to be able to stabilize them during high velocity and high power output type of movements. Now the last one on the list, typically I want to do something related to the core, whether it's a rotational piece or just like a plank pull through, something to get the core engaged, get the core activated. And then for this one specifically, this is gonna have a little bit of low back that we're gonna warm up because we're gonna get into some hinge positions later, and I wanna make sure that it's nice and ready to go. I'll put in and we'll do actually some priming exercises and some power-based exercises before we get into the main sort of power-based movement. So this is just the first layer of what we're getting in. With these TRX glute raises, these are low-key very underrated. All I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to get in a deep range of motion, okay? Pinch my shoulder blades back. I'm feeling a stretch in the chest. And then what I like to do is I like to apply a little bit of tension, okay? So I'm actively pushing into the handles a little bit, getting a little bit of like an isometric contraction. All I'm trying to do is develop a tiny bit of strength and a deeper range of motion that normally I cannot get to, which is gonna be, you know, your mobility, strength under, or range of motion under tension, okay? So I'm just applying a little bit of tension, abs are turned on, and you're gonna find those sticking points, okay? And it's a slow raise on up, opening up. You do a few reps. And then typically I'll do one where I'm just stretching, not applying as much tension. That's the TRX glute raise. TRX YTWs, I know a lot of people know this, but just one kind of mistake that I see a lot is that people will kind of jerk themselves up and then just fall down to the bottom. The point of the TRX is that you're getting that eccentric resistance, right? So you're having to control yourself on the way down, okay? So adjust your feet as much as you can handle. Arms are straight. I'm pulling up, fighting all the resistance that I can, and then I'm trying to control the motion on the way down. If you need to make it harder, lean further forward. And I'm fighting for every extra inch that I can before coming back down, okay? We don't wanna just, right? Because we're not getting that strengthening piece when we're just falling, okay? So I'll do that for all the Y's, the T's. All right, that wasn't supposed to be a max rep, so I need to lighten up a little bit. And then the W's. So with the W's, I like to row and rotate for a few reps. And then I like to bring it all together and allow the shoulder blade to move naturally as it would, okay? And then push-ups. It doesn't matter the order that you do this. Typically, I just start with the glute raise, and then I go into whatever, right? So I'm just going deep range of motion. Squeeze, come on up. So again, for this video, the reason I'm doing this is because my low back feels like shit right now. I slept on a soft mattress and my back hurts and I need to get into flexion. So while you can have a programmed out warm up, like you should feel okay to make adjustments and address your own personal needs with what you need to feel good, okay? So if you are gonna do this, the key thing, right, you get hips off, and then when you come up, you look up. When you go down, you look down. So you get max extension and max flexion. And I'm just trying to have the pelvis move and round a little bit and open it up. Typically with these, I like to go a lot higher reps, around 20, because then I feel good. All right, so after we get our dynamic warm-up, then I move typically into a plyometric and plus like a primer, okay? So I'm trying to prime the central nervous system to apply a shit ton of force and strength, and then take that into a very high velocity based movement. So there's a little bit of contrast training going to work, but we're really trying to fire up the CNS before we get into our kind of main strength and power based movement. So I'll typically either do an overcoming horizontal push or a horizontal pull, depending on what the main focus of the day is, okay? So if I'm really looking to maximize some bench and some some of that stuff, I'm gonna pair it with a horizontal push because it just goes in line with what we're doing. If I'm having a more back focused day, I might do an overcoming my isometric with a horizontal pull and do like an inverted row. So for the rest of the workout, we're gonna outline a horizontal push type of workout. So we'll do an overcoming isometric with a horizontal push, 2 sets, 7-ish seconds, 7 to 10 tops. And then we're gonna pair that with a plyometric push-up for 5 reps. So think max effort, max force, max intention. This is gonna be to set up your overall power development for what we're trying to do later on in the workout. This is just an overcoming isometric with the bench press. So I set up the J hooks, kind of scoop back a little bit so that it's in line with my chest. Probably should have scooted this bench back a little bit. I'm here, big set in the back, raise the abs, drive through the heels and feet. You're trying to push as hard as you possibly can. Now, a highly underrated plyometric push-up that people I don't know, they maybe think it's girly or some shit, I don't really know, is a plyometric push-up off a bench. Okay, so this allows you to get max follow through, okay, which is gonna allow you to produce more power. And all you're trying to do is push yourself up as high as you possibly can off of it. And then as you come down and land, you get to work on our stretch shorten cycle, which is a name of the game for producing power. So the stretch shorten cycle just means that when a muscle fiber is stretched very rapidly, and it has to be rapidly, there's an automatic response that your central nervous system sends to the muscle to contract back quickly, right? So big stretch, contract, come back quickly, okay? If it's nice and slow, we lose some of that power output and it gets dissipated as heat, okay? So all you're doing, I'll typically start on the bench, lock the abs in, lock the glutes in, because a lot of people will cheat and push their ass back, and you'll probably see me cheat a little bit, but I'm trying not to. I'm here. Okay, and I'm just trying to get as high as I possibly fucking can. Like, it's everything you got, okay? That would be more beginner, I would say. Let me say this. If your, and some of you might not like this, if your upper body is weak, the number one thing you can do to maximize power is get stronger, okay? So if you're doing this and you can't really get off the bench, I would say it's a strength issue, right? So you need to just generate more force. You need to lift heavier shit. It's really what it comes down to. Your upper body isn't the same as your lower body. So with your upper body, the fibers don't respond as aggressively to high velocity, fast twitch type of stuff that your lower body does. Your lower body really adapts a lot more aggressively to the type of training that you're doing. The upper body, you can get away with more strength-based movements, a little bit slower-based stuff, and still get power out of it. So that's typically why with a majority of the upper body strength and power training that we do on my page, on my socials, and even inside the Peak Performance program is typically geared to be a little bit more heavy. And then it's only in some of the later phases that we really start to ramp up the high velocity stuff. So it's because I want everyone to get the most out of that training and not just shit that looks flashy and cool, okay? But I would say this is probably one of the easier versions. Still great, still hits my chest really well, still feel like I'm producing a lot of power. Now I showed you the different type of movement patterns, and I showed you that you can do some unilateral variations. So if you wanted to work more on unilateral strength when you are getting into the main sort of lift, it's really simple. The setup will be exactly the same, okay? For the initial the primer, all you're gonna do is just take one under, one over. You're gonna pull down hard with this. You're gonna get a little priming for the back in this as well, which is nice. And then you're gonna get this side for your push, Okay, so all you're gonna do is do a push-pull, right? So you're doing this. Whoa, 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 whoa. All right, maybe not as aggressive. Okay, 1, 2. That's the thing with the J hooks. Some J hooks work great, some don't work great for this shit. 1, 2. I will say you're gonna look like a psychopath to some people. Now, if I'm doing a unilateral primer, I wanna have something similar for the plyometric. So one I really like is an alternating plyometric push-up where we're jumping basically over the box. Okay, so you're putting more force through one arm. You're getting a little bit here, but there's a greater percentage of force output reliant on one arm over the next. So I'm here. Now, after we've gone through the plyos and primer, this will be our next. This is like the main portion of the lift where we're developing our strength and power. So I'll use something called a power complex. So if you've heard of French contrast training, it's just a reduced version of that I think gets the same amount of results and is a little less fatiguing on the body. Okay, so we're starting off with a heavy strength movement. Okay, I'm choosing close grip bench press because I want to target a little bit more of the triceps, and it's going to be a little bit more in line with, you know, athletic based movements. You're not really ever pushing out this way. Doesn't mean that that's bad. It just means that I'm not really trying to work on that right now, okay? Close grip bench press, that's our maximal strength movement, okay? Then we're getting into a very light, high velocity based movement. It's gonna be a one-step chest pass, okay, with a med ball. Very light, very fast, fucking throwing it through the goddamn roof, okay? And then we're getting into an overspeed. So we're working through the force velocity profile. We're achieving something called post-activation potentiation with the heavy strength movement into the power and then overspeed type movement. One thing I see a lot of people mess up is that they'll do contrast type sets, they'll do these things, but their rep scheme is all messed up. The reps have to be very low on the strength movement because you do not want to overly fatigue the muscle. If you do sets of 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, you're gonna get that metabolic stress and you're going to fatigue the muscle, and it's not going to be as fresh as it needs to be to actually produce power. And if you're not producing power within about 5 to 10% of your maximal effort, we're not really developing it. So you kind of shoot yourself in the foot if you're trying to do higher volume based contrast type training and taking advantage of post-activation potentiation. It has to be lower reps. It doesn't have to be higher weight necessarily, it just has to be lower reps with a faster acceleration. So maximal intent on these. So we're gonna do 3 to 4 sets of 3 for the close grip bench press, 5 for the one-step chest pass, and then 5 for the assisted push-up. Now, typically, if I'm focusing a majority on horizontal pressing, I'll do a contrast type version for the opposite movement pattern. So we're focusing on horizontal push. So now I wanna contrast horizontal pull so I still get some strength and some power development there, which is gonna be either a pendulum or Anderson row. 3 to 4 sets of 3, so heavy, and then we'll either do a sled row or an inverted plyo row. Power-based training for the back is definitely challenging. There's not a ton that you can do. I've found I pretty much hammer these all the time. You can do some banded row stuff. You can do some cable row stuff if you have a right type of cable machine like a Kaiser or something like that that has a continuous kind of resistance. But I found that these have been really good for the power-based stuff. You can also do this in the vertical pattern, right? So if you wanted to hit something like a snatch grip upright row and then do like a dumbbell type of high row or something of that nature, you can mix and match with those different movement patterns that I said before to create and craft your own style of training. It's just on your second day of training, you just want to flip-flop them with what you did on the previous day and hit some of the other stuff that maybe you haven't hit already in the one workout. Now this is the one-step chest pass, so you got to step back a little bit, okay? So you can't just be like arm's length away. Typically, I like to do arm's length, and then 1, and then 2 steps for my positioning, because I'm gonna do 1 step, push, and follow through, and you're gonna end up at that close point, and then you'll catch the ball, okay? So 1, 2. Now, the acceleration mechanics come into this if you're trying to actually produce a lot of power. I wanna have a slightly wide base, so about shoulder width apart, knee over the toe, so my shin angle is more horizontal, and then I'm pressing out as hard as I can, letting that force transfer, that momentum transfer, and then boom, out through the arms, okay? And I'll switch legs. Try to pop the ball. Now we'll get into the band-assisted plyometric push-ups, okay? So this is that overspeed. We're just trying to train the central nervous system and the stretch shorten cycle to really work very quickly and very rapidly, okay? So if you're a bigger guy, definitely recommend setting the supports up a little bit higher and using a thicker band. Again, this isn't about how much, like, the least resistance that you can use. It's about maximizing speed. So if you need to use a thicker band, great, who cares? Okay, now when I get set up, I typically want to set it up right around my sternum here. Make sure it feels good. And then I'm just getting into it, okay? So if you have a lower setup with the band, you're not gonna get that resistance at the bottom, and that's what we want. We want it really providing a lot of upward resistance so that you can get off the ground quicker, okay? This band might be a little too much help, because it's about perfect, right? Like I'm almost on the ground, okay? And you just get the fuck after it. With the bench, you just never want any grindy reps. You want to go as heavy as possible, but you don't want any super slow grindy reps, okay? Like that was almost spot on. I could probably go 295. Say you don't have a sick ass facility that allows you to throw med balls into the gym. Here's an alternative. It's a bent over floor chest pass, okay? It's rapid, so I do more reps. I typically do 10, and I'm just. When you go into these movements, you shouldn't feel really any fatigue. So yes, this is a superset, and yes, we want you going one right after the other, right after the other. If you need to take 30, 45 seconds rest in between, it's not going to affect you and how much strength or power you develop. It'll honestly help you with everything. And now we're gonna get started with our horizontal strength and power movements. So we'll get started with the Anderson or pendule row. I like the Anderson variation a little bit better. You could definitely go for the floor if you want, but again, max strength, lock your shit in. And then we'll move into our sled row variation. Now for the sled row, a lot of people ask me like, well, how much weight do I put on there? My recommendation is that you add enough weight to where you get about 3 to maybe 4 yards per pull, okay? If you wanna work a little bit quicker, type of power movement, then you lighten the load. If you want a little bit more aggressive, heavier, then you probably add a little bit more weight, and now it's going down to 2 to 3 yards, okay? Why I like the sled row is because when you get into it, you're gonna get some rotation of the hip, right? We're gonna get a little of that rotation. That's why I like it. And honestly, all you're trying to do is start the lawnmower. You're trying to row it as hard as you possibly can. So this is probably a little too light for me. Oh, we're right about there. Now you can totally be done here after the contrast set. We had a lot of good work, had a lot of good volume with what we're doing, but if you have some time and you want to work some other stuff, you can add an accessory block. Typically in this accessory block, I'm doing some core, some arms, and some shoulders that maybe I didn't get hit throughout this. So I might put in a vertical type shoulder press in here because we only got horizontal here, okay? Or I might hit the upper traps a little bit more. It really depends on what you want, and I want you to be able to use this however you want to be able to make and fit within your needs. Now, I did say that I would show you how to make this more of a hypertrophy type of training. So all you would do if you're trying to get the strength and then the power, right, is you would take away this contrast set right here. You take this away, and instead you would do hypertrophy. I'm just gonna leave it hypertrophy, right? For the back, right? We're gonna leave the horizontal press, the main strength and power, but then you would spend your time with back-based hypertrophy exercises, whether that's lat pull down, dumbbell row, cable row, single arm row, reverse flies, whatever you want it to be. Typically I'm doing 3 to 4 of those type of exercises, 3 to 4 sets, maybe 8 to 12 type of reps with that, or you can have in some arms if you really wanted to. So that's typically how I would make this more of a hypertrophy workout. And then the following day, or not following day, the next time you did upper body, I would flip-flop this. So if we focus on horizontal pull or push, then these would be horizontal pull and a plyometric type of inverted row with this. And our power complex might be a pendulum row plus an sled row plus an inverted row, because that's going to get us kind of that same power complex that we're working for. And then I would have my hypertrophy be the horizontal press. That could be an incline dumbbell, could be bench press, could be chest flies. You could have any triceps in there as well. So that's how you would really make this your own, and then you could have your accessory core-based exercises in there as well. My name's Coach Nick. I'm a strength and conditioning coach. I've worked with hundreds of athletes at the highest level to the Olympic level, and I'm here to really help you and other athletes get the most out of their training so that they can make their goals a reality with what you're doing. So please make sure to like, follow, and subscribe if you haven't already, and comment down below what videos you'd want to see next, whether it's more in-depth tutorials or more program breakdowns or workout breakdowns. I'm here to serve you and help all of you. Again, thanks, and I'll see you in the next video.